Welcome to the Doubles Only Tennis Podcast, where you learn the best doubles lessons to improve your game and win more matches while getting to know some of the top doubles players and coaches on the planet. I'm your host, Will Bochek. This podcast, my weekly strategy newsletter, and my website all focus on the goal of better understanding the sport of doubles and helping players like you improve faster through actionable advice that you can use in your very next match. My goal is to provide the best doubles resources in the world. And to do that, I study, analyze, and work with players at every level of the game, all the way up to the ATP and WTA tours. If you enjoy this podcast, consider becoming a Tennis Tribe member to go even deeper and take your doubles IQ to the next level. Members get access to premium podcast episodes, weekly video lessons, monthly strategy webinars, courses, ebooks, gear discounts, and a lot more. Go to thetennistribe.com/memberships to see all the benefits and sign up. Here's today's episode. You're about to hear my conversation with Coach Calvin Betton. Calvin is the coach of Henry Patton, who just won the ATP Finals in doubles with Harry Heliovara, and he also coaches Luke Johnson, who reached a career-high ranking this year of 28 in the world. I wanted to have Calvin on after seeing him on TV coaching at the ATP Finals and ultimately his team winning the ATP Finals. And we talk a lot about his experience there, what clicked and worked so well for Henry and Harry towards the end of the year. And we also discussed kind of the year overall, 2025 as a whole. We talked about the adversity they faced throughout the year, how they dealt with very difficult losses. We talked about the off season, what training looks like for Henry and Luke. I asked him specifically about returns because he talked a lot about how Henry and Luke are both such good returners. So I asked him how he thinks about training the return in doubles, and I really liked his answer to this question. We also discussed partnership updates for 2026. We talked about the U.S. Open mixed doubles as we kind of reflect on that as a very significant experiment for doubles earlier this year, and a lot more. So this is a really fun conversation. Calvin always says it like it is and gives us lots of insights into the ATP doubles tour. So without further delay, enjoy this conversation with Calvin Betton. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today we have Calvin Betton back on. Calvin, welcome back.
Good to be here, Will. Hope you're all good.
Yeah, everything's good over here. Y'all had a good end to the year, winning Paris in the ATP Finals with Henry Patton and Harry Heliovara. I want to talk about the year or the end of the year here in a minute, but before I get to that, remind me, was this your third year on tour, on the ATP tour coaching?
It depends what you call ATP tour, because I've split, some of them between challengers and I haven't kept count, I guess. I did Wimbledon with Luke before I coached Henry, so I did Wimbledon and a couple of ATP tournaments in 21 maybe, and then the Luke also played Wimbledon 2019, but I wasn't there that year. And then I guess in terms of third year in total, that I've been almost exclusively ATPs, I guess.
Okay, so I imagine being basically, I guess you could call it full-time ATP. You're only coaching at ATP events. You're learning a lot. This is the first
year. I don't think I've been to a challenger this year.
Okay. Because I remember talking with you, I think it was at Indian Wells, and you said it was your first time there, or maybe it was
the first time Indian Wells. But I guess for doubles guys, the Masters are not easy to get in. You can be full-time on the ATP tour and never go to a Masters,
Right, that's true. But my question for you is, what is something you learned this year as a coach, whether it be about yourself or your coaching style or about the tours in general?
I guess it's something that I'm continuing to learn and to try and get better with. I get quite sort of wrapped up in results, and especially with doubles, like with the scoring systems, like you just can sometimes be on a little bit of run of bad luck and things don't go your way, and it doesn't mean you're playing any worse than what you are, and you know, any worse than what you were, and sometimes those results just don't go your way. And equally, you know, you can just find your way through a few matches where you don't play that well, but um, you know, so it's difficult. But I mean, I guess the main thing was like, especially at different stages in this year, was, you know, because as a coach, you're always kind of working like you're always working to develop players and that kind of thing. And I still am. This never stops. What I'm going to say, but there were moments this year where, like, I mean, Henry, I think now is the best doubles player in the world. And I think around about the French Open, Luke was playing the best tennis of anybody in the world as well. And there are moments where, you know, you think, right, okay, now, you know, we're always sort of striving to get to that. And you think, wow, we're actually here. And that doesn't mean you stop working. You're always trying to get better and better. But, you know, it was quite a sort of, you know, a moment when you think, yeah, you know, this is kind of it. We keep working, but this is kind of like what we've been striving for, really.
Hmm. Two follow-up questions there. So one, you talked about the strings of bad luck, which I know your both your players had some of this year. What do you, how did you deal with it this year? And then how do you think you'll deal with it maybe differently going forward if you do, say, lose first round or second round in three or four tournaments in a row?
I mean, it's more just the nature of the matches. You know, that there are certain matches where, like for example, the Wimbledon quart final that Henry and Harry lost. Like, and that I don't wish to take any credit away at all from Julian and Lloyd, who were my friends, and around about that time they were certainly deserving, and they were the best team in the world. You know, that they deserved that Wimbledon title and what have you. But I came away that was from one of those matches where at the time I felt it, and even I didn't watch the match for about 2 or 3 weeks after, but when I watched the match after it, everything that, you know, we have certain metrics where I gauge the matches on, and everything pointed to we're going to win this match. You know, when you talk about momentum moments and crossroad moments in a match, and we won almost every single one of them, and we won more big points and everything, but they just found a way at the end. And you know, that match was particularly difficult for me to get over, I think. And I think it was the same for, I mean, Henry tends to not stress about these things too much, but I know Harry, it was, you know, he had some sleepless nights over it as well. And don't get me wrong, you know, we've won a lot of these close matches over the last couple of years. So I'm not saying we would deserve it of it or anything like that. You always get what you deserve in any match, but it was one of those where you think, I I I don't get how we could have done anything more there. And that's not
Hmm.
like, but it wasn't good enough. It's just like, and that isn't even the scoring system, because that's just normal tennis scoring in a match like that. But you watch it and you think like, I don't get how we've lost that match. Everything pointed to it. Whereas at the same time, you had like a very similar match in terms of scoreline was the US Open, where the lads didn't play great at all. Uh, Henry and Harry, and we almost won it. We had a match point. And then, you know, that one was more like it was a disappointment in the match in terms of the result. And I was devastated that they lost the match, but it was more like, yeah, we didn't do enough to win that match. Whereas at Wimbledon, it was like more we threw everything at it, and something happened that just didn't go our way. You know, like whether
Hmm.
it be like one of the match points, Harry returns a ball that's a centimeter out or less than a centimeter out, that would have been a winner. Even on the match point that Lloyd and Jules won the match with, Lloyd's first serve and Harry hits a unbelievable backhand return winner, and the ball, it turns out the serve was out by about a millimeter and a half. Um, and things like that. You know, it's just always on the margins. And then there are other matches as well, like Luke and Sanders' match at the US Open was massively disappointing as well. Like, again, similar, like you just think, how have we come away not winning this match?
What does the team meeting look like after matches like that? Or do y'all
It
sit down and
varies.
talk through it, or?
Yeah, I mean, we always do. It varies a lot of the time. Like, Wimbledon was very, it was a tough one. We stuck together as a team, and it was just one of those. Yeah, the one benefit is you could go, look, we threw everything at it out there. There's nothing. It's a tough match to review because the questions that you'd ask when you're reviewing roundabout in many ways are what did we do well there? What would we want to carry on doing, and what would we do better if we were to play it again? And there's not much you can go. What will we do better in matches like that? Whereas that was different. The US Open matches were both of my team's matches that they lost there were more like that. There's a whole lot we could have done better there.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. When I'm playing or coaching matches, one thing I guess that you mentioned was Harry had maybe some sleepless nights after the Wimbledon loss, but one thing that helps me not have those sleepless nights is to make sure I did everything I could to prepare and execute at the best level possible. And if I do that and lose, I can still go to sleep at night versus if I maybe missed something in the scouting report or maybe made a dumb mental error when I went line and should have gone cross or served to the wrong spot on a big point or whatever it is.
I think
That
it can
would
go
give
the other
me
way on
more.
that though. I think it can go
Yeah.
the other way on that though, Will, where like I think when I say that then like both me and Harry had sleepless nights, that it was
Hmm.
more like, how on earth, we did everything. We did
Yeah.
everything there.
What are we missing, kind of?
Yeah, we did. And then when I watched it back, like, there's certain metrics for scoring and that kind of thing that we have that I won't bore everyone with going into too much detail because we'd be here all night. But everything sort of in the way that the scoring went and everything, you don't lose those matches. And we lost that
Hmm.
one. Like
Yeah.
everything pointed to it. And like, there were big moments. There was a big moment at the start of the third set. I think Henry was love 30 on his serve and he played four unbelievable points from love 30. Both him and Harry played them. And everyone in the crowd thought that was a huge turning point in the match. Like,
Hmm.
that was the break point. And in these matches, there are hardly any breaks. And then it just turned out not to be the big point. And then Jules went love 40 on his serve at 5-6. And you think, yeah. But anyway, look, we spoke long enough about that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that Wimbledon quarterfinal anyway.
How do you this kind of brings me to a different topic that I wasn't expecting to talk about, but I want to get your thoughts on. How do you think about momentum and do you measure momentum in matches?
Um, it's one of those. There's two sides to it, Will. It's like people talk about momentum a lot of the time, and sometimes you think it definitely plays a part, and then other times I'd really believe that it's just complete hokum, and it doesn't mean
Hmm.
anything, especially in doubles, especially with the scoring system. That things, yeah, there are times where you think it's gone. Like the momentum's changed, the momentum's swung, but what is it? Because you can say it's a momentum somewhere, but then the other team wins 1 point and the momentum's the other way.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. In singles, I think it's easier to gauge momentum. There is I know there is some scoring charting systems around that gauge momentum that some of which I've seen are very good, but they do rely on it being full juice and full
Hmm.
third set as well. But there are times where, like I say, there are times where momentum, you think it's fully gone one way, and then it's not. Like what does it mean? It's like the turning point in matches. It's just the way that they work. And I think in tennis, in doubles, it's more random as well with the scoring
Hmm.
system. You
Yeah.
can. I've seen matches played where one team is completely dominant and then the other team plays 10 minutes of good tennis and it's a swing. It's gone the other way. And like I've seen matches this year with my players. I won't go into like which matches because it's not fair on the opponents and that kind of thing where you think we're battering them and then there's just a 5 minute spell where it goes the other way and suddenly you're 7-all in a tiebreak or 7-8 serving in a tiebreak. You're like, I don't know, I'll make a random score up. You're like 6-1 4-all, and you've had break
Hmm.
points in almost every game in the second set. And before you know it, they've held, you've lost a serve, they've caught fire on a couple of returns, and then like 5 minutes from, you're 6-1 4-all, and then literally like 7 minutes later, you're 6-3 down in the match tiebreak, and you're like,
Hmm.
how are we here? We've
Yeah.
been the best pair for like 85% of this match.
Yeah, that's something that I've talked with Dan about actually, because he has phrased it, I guess, with Gabby and Aaron this year in a few matches where they were either up big like that, with, having dominated through the first set and a half, or even down big in that same way. And one thing Dan said that has kind of stuck with me is, you're always 10 minutes of good tennis or bad tennis away from losing the match. So,
For
like
sure, yeah, for
in that
sure.
scenario, yeah, it takes not long to change the
Well, you look
trajectory of
at
a
well,
match like that.
you see very few matches, and I'll take away the matches that involve singles guys who are tanking. You see very few 6-2, 6-3 doubles matches.
Hmm.
Like it just it I don't know the actual numbers on it, but I reckon less than. Well, put it this way, I know what somebody once said that they, and I think it was somebody from UTR actually who told me that they class a competitive match in inverted commas as the losing player or team wins 7 games. So in that match, so it could be 6-4, 6-3 would be a competitive match. 6-4, 6-2 wouldn't be. But I don't know how many doubles matches you see on the tour that would class in the not competitive range. And I
Yeah,
don't think there'd be many at all.
yeah,
Like
it
even I have
can.
matches now. I have matches now where I look back and like I'm thinking back on them now, and I think, yeah, we won that match comfortably. It was like, I think we played so and so, and I think, yeah, it was probably like, you know, 4-1 or something. And then I look back at the actual charting that I did on the match, and it's like 6-4.
Yeah,
Like and
yeah,
it's like, but you think, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, because most of the time, if you're the better team, you win the match. You end up just cruising through winning the match. But there is those times where you don't. So those matches where I'm thinking like that, I'm thinking, yeah, we were in control, we were playing great tennis, that kind of thing. But you in your head, you've got it down as being more comfortable than it was, and you look back on it, and it's like 6-4, and you're like, wow, we were,
yeah,
again, we were 10 minutes away from losing that match.
yeah. I'm interested in this, back to the momentum thing, and then we'll switch to another topic. But I'm very interested in the momentum, the kind of tennis theories of momentum. One analogy that I've heard before, and I think it was like a Warren Buffett investment analogy or something, but I think it applies to momentum in tennis too. But if I were to like flip a coin, I may have told you this before. So if this sounds familiar, stop me. But if I were to like flip a coin 100 times, right, there would be some times during those 100 flips where heads would have like three or four in a row, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
would you say heads has momentum? Like, no, you're flipping a coin,
yeah,
right? So it's
exactly.
like
Yeah.
in tennis, just because a team wins like 5 points in a row or 10 out of 12 points, like it's hard for me to get behind the idea that that's like momentum versus just chance. Like
Well, I remember
over the course of,
I read a book a few years ago. What some coach wrote a book about momentum in tennis, and everybody was like raving about it for a while. This was like probably 20 years ago. Like the British coach who wrote it, and everyone was raving about it. This book's amazing. And then I read it, and it's not a long book. I think it's probably about 100 pages. And then at the end of it, like it was like tips on, right, what do you do with this information? And like tip one was, if you have the momentum, try and keep it. And tip two was, if the momentum is with the opponent, try and grasp it from them. I'm like, right, that's
brilliant.
that's it. Yeah, that's all you've got. But
Wow.
but
That's so
and that
funny.
is what I get. What it's one of those things. Yeah, maybe it is. There is force of momentum, but like what you can do with it is, there's stuff
Yeah.
like, yeah, take your time a bit. Don't let the match run away from you. But at the end of the day, good tennis, good tennis wins. Play good
Yeah.
tennis. Like
Yeah.
that's all you can do. You can play good tennis.
So I want to talk about the ATP Finals. It's obviously a very different format. How is it different from the other tournaments throughout the year, and how do you approach it differently as a coach?
Um, a couple of things. You're there for a week. Well, longer than that because we got there on like a Wednesday. You're there until at least the following Thursday or Friday, depending when you play your first match. So you kind of settle in. I always say this: it's one of the only tournaments where I actually unpack my bag.
Hmm.
Because I know I'm going to be there. The only other one I think that I've unpacked my bag this year was US Open, because basically because I knew then we were there for like 5 days. So I put my stuff in the drawers and in the wardrobe, but anything else, I don't like to take anything for granted. So I just leave things in the bag and I get them out in the morning when I want to get dressed. And there's almost no point. So that you're there for a while. There's the round robin feel. As it happens, the round robin feel this year actually didn't come into massive effect. It was like obviously we lost the match in the second. We lost the second match. We beat Harrison and King first match, played great. Um, and then in the second match, we lost to Salisbury Skupski. So then you have another match. But then as it happened, that other match just basically turned into a quarterfinal because that was winner goes through. So then it's a knockout from there. So,
Hmm.
so almost apart from the one that we lost, almost every match was a knockout. You want to win your first match. You don't want to go losing your first match. So you're trying to win it. You know, but yeah, there are times when with the round robin, and we've only played it twice. Last year we won every match, so it wasn't, it never felt different there. It was keep winning every match and then you're out when you lose. And this year there are times when it's we may just need a set to go through here, but it wasn't that. The match we played this year was a straight. The last match was a straight winner goes through against Aravala
Hmm.
Pavic. So in that respect, it didn't actually feel a whole lot different.
What about like I guess all these teams you've played multiple times, so you've probably got kind of your scouting reports and all of that ready to go for the most part before the tournament. Does that change a lot going into the ATP finals, or do you feel like you know all the teams, you're just going to focus on preparing your players and getting them ready to
Um,
go?
I mean, as it happens, though, Will, we actually didn't play all of them that a great deal this year. So
Okay.
before the draw came out, we played Harrison and King once. We played Granola Zeballos once. We hadn't played. We played Kravietz twice in the first 2 weeks of the year, then hadn't played them since. So we played them in Adelaide and then Australian Open. Haven't played them since. We played Joe and Neil a few times. We played Joe and Neil 3 times before this. We played Julian and Lloyd 5 times, obviously, but they weren't in our group. Arevalo Pavic we hadn't played. The Italians we haven't played since Australia, second week of the year. Um, I think that's it. So
Okay.
in terms of that, it's not like apart from Joe and Neil and Lloyd and Jules, we actually hadn't played loads of these top 10 players, top 10 teams a great deal. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of scout. I did a lot of scouting on each of the teams. We tried a couple of different things this time. I did a couple of like video attachments to the scouting reports, which is something I've been trying to add. Still trying to work my way around the best way of doing that. Some teams, there are certain teams that have very pronounced things that they do that you can jump on, and there are some teams that don't. That you go, there's not a whole lot of weaknesses in these.
Hmm.
Again, I don't want to go into which of those teams they are, but there would, I'd put both of those teams into. I'd put probably apart from us, there were 3 teams who you think they're very very good, and there's not whole lots of weaknesses or even patterns that they follow. They vary everything very well, and there's others that you go, they do this every time, and once you've got
Hmm.
that, they do this every time, or they never do this, then you can start getting a good scouting report. But um, yeah, there was a lot of scouting. This sort of the ways of doing it is we use the data, we watch the matches, and then there's also like a feel thing as well. And I also had like a bit of help this time. So Boris, Harry's coach, was there, and yeah, so and Louis was there as well. Who I wouldn't say he doesn't like get involved in the scouting report, but he offers his sort of advice on what certain players may do. Although, because we played Brits twice, he didn't offer anything. He stays neutral on those.
Sure. What kind of clicked the last two tournaments of the year? They obviously played so well. I was looking through the results from Paris and the ATP Finals, and even the match they lost, I think they won more total points. I think so, something I'm looking at a lot, and I'd be interested to hear your take on it. But I look at the score line, but I also look at the total points won because that gives me a sense of how close the match was. Like you said earlier, it can be 7-6, 7-6-4, and it can be very straightforward, or it can be very tight, right? And it looked like in, I think all these matches except for two in Paris and the finals, they won by more than 10 points, which is a significant margin in doubles. So what was
I
kind of
mean,
clicking and going so well for them?
yeah, a few things on that. I think it's actually been, and this is what we talk about with, especially in doubles, how the results don't give necessarily give a perfect view of where you're at in playing because of that total point. So I can't remember the US Open, Will, but I think I can't. I think the US Open might be the only match, or maybe the match we lost to Mensik and Lehechka in Cincinnati. That might be the only match where over the whole summer where we didn't win the most points. Because I know
Hmm.
that, for example, that we won the most points in every match in Turin. We won the most points in every match in Paris. We lost in the semis in Vienna to Lloyd and Jules, but we won more points in that match. And we won most points in the two matches before that. Shanghai, we lost to Guinard and Andriozzi, and we won more points in that match. Um, Before that, Beijing, they won the tournament. They won the most points in all those matches. And then before that was US Open, in which I don't know, we might have won the most points. We lost 7-5 in the third, so it's possible
No, it
that
looks no, it
they
looks
might have won it.
like yeah, it looks like they did not. 119, 109.
Okay. Yeah. So that's going back, so I think since then, I think we've won the most points in every match.
Okay. So you
Um,
felt like even though you don't necessarily win Shanghai and Vienna, you feel like they're playing at such a high level that any of these
yeah, I mean,
tournaments,
Both Shanghai and Vienna, they were playing very, very well.
yeah.
I mean, they'd just come off of Beijing, um, which was the first tournament that we won since Australian Open. And they come into Beijing and won that, and then yeah, just kept they were playing great tennis. Everything from then in Vienna they played great, um, and then in Shanghai, we were all over Guinard Andriozzi in Shanghai, and then it was a strange one. I mean, the courts there were very slow. And it was nighttime. It was pretty late at night, and I think it got slower, and that's always going to kind of suit Andriozzi and Guinard, and sort of gave them an edge. I think we'd have played them in the daytime. We beat them in Beijing the week before that. Um, but I think going back to like what the main difference is, there's one sort of key difference. There's a few, sorry, should I say? I think over the summer there was. I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but there was the business with Henry getting his fine at Wimbledon, which was a joke. It was a ridiculous situation. And I think that had some layover on everybody in the team. It just kind of it was so stupid that I think it made the whole thing just less enjoyable. Just being a tennis player, especially for Henry, I think he for somebody whose behaviour is as exemplary as he is, to get a fine for disciplinary for something that was a total nonsense. Um, that kind of had some hangover. Harry was carrying a few niggles over the US hardcourt season, maybe even from the grass as well. He was having a problem with his foot, sort of from Queens, and then nothing major, but just two or three niggles all the time that could never really get away from. And Harry's such a warrior on court. He wanted to sort of play through everything, but I don't know. He still played some good ball in that period, but you only need to be 2 or 3% off, and it can cause a problem. And then,
Hmm.
so then coming out of US, I think they both had a break. Henry's sort of, the nonsense that went on at Wimbledon was sort of cleared from his mind a bit, and also Harry had got his body in good shape again, and then they were good to go again. And sort of in just pure tennis terms, the main difference is the return game. Like we just couldn't find a real rhythm on return for the whole summer, really, where I felt like teams were holding serve too comfortably. Like we'd have too many matches where teams were getting just kind of cruising through service games. They go 30 love up almost every time. It's kind of like US Open was kind of like that, which there was no real explanation for why, because we actually, at the US Open, the training was great. We went into the match feeling great. And I know we had a couple of practice sets the day before, and I think we won them like 6-2, 6-1 or something against another good team who ended up doing pretty well. And then we went into the next day, we went into the match and just couldn't find a way on return at all. And then, since the start of Asia, going in right to the end of the year, just constant pressure from return. They were returning unbelievably for the last third of the year. And it really got to a stage where, and I said this to the lads in Turin, that it felt like other teams, they had to hit their spots. They had to serve at like 75% and hit their spots on serve, or we were all over them like a rush. And that's the way it went right to the end of the year, to the final. We were just constantly pummeling teams on return that they knew they had to serve so well. And on top of that as well, but this hasn't changed. This has been the case really. Like, Henry and Harry are the best serving team in the world. Like, I think teams think us, but and it's not by miles, because Jules and Lloyd are a great serving team. Both of them serve great. Both of them volley great. Both of them are great service partners. But statistically speaking, if you just look at statistically, Henry and Harry give less break points away. They get broken less. They get less break point opportunities away than any other team. And so when you factor in that they're the best serving team in the world, and then they're returning as well as they were for the last third of the year, that's tough to play against.
You talked about returns, and I think earlier this year when we chatted, you mentioned that Luke, the other player you coached, was, I think you said he was probably the best returner in the world at the time, maybe. What do you do to train returns? Do you have like a specific philosophy or kind of training regimen that you follow for training returns in doubles?
I mean, it's different. I mean, I still say that I still think Luke is one of, if not the best returners in the world. Like, the injury kind of put a stall on that. Luke broke his wrist 2 weeks before Wimbledon, and but his returning, he returned great at US Open, and then throughout the indoor season. Although it's always going to be better to return on slower courts. But yeah, in terms of how we train it, there isn't a specific way, Will. It depends. Like, players are different. I don't like to put my players into a sort of pigeonhole of like, I train them all the same way. They play entirely different games. So like Luke returns in a different manner from Henry, and both of them return in a different manner from Harry. So it's not something that we do. And I think it's like it's kind of having an identity as a player that this, or an identity as a returner. What kind of returner are you? Are you a destructive returner? Like, say, I would say both Luke and Henry are probably, like, in different ways, but they're destructive returners. Whereas you've got other good returners, I guess, guys like sort of like Matt Ebden, Nikola Mektic, those kind of returners who are the kind of guys who they're just going to make you play a ball. They're not going to hit a whole lot of clean winners straight past you, but they're going to find a way of making you play a ball and get it past the service partner often enough, and that kind of thing. And then you've got kind of returners like a bit like, I guess, like what Harry is, in that they're kind of the returners that I say they come up with some magic every now and then. They might not have made a return for 2 or 3 games, and then they find something. Or Harry can kind of do all three, though. He can make people play, and he can be destructive as well. Like, it's some unbelievable backhand returns in Turin. But I think different type of returns. Then you get the guys who lob a whole lot. Like, no one really fancies serving against Sadio Doumbia. He's going to just lob a lot, and like Romboli and Smith have kind of got that going this year. And it's something that we have kind of added, like, to both Henry and Luke this year in different ways. Like, Henry've worked a lot on him lobbing, particularly on the backhand side, but also a bit on the forehand side of using a chip lob a bit more, just so teams can't just camp on top of the net. Luke, I would say maybe kind of 18 months ago, started adding a topspin lob into his repertoire, into his game, and he uses that extremely well now. To the extent where I think he can go now off both wings. He can go line or cross off both wings, and that is one of the reasons why he's so feared as a returner. I think he's, especially on his backhand side, he has an unbelievable inside-out backhand return that on the juice a lot of players don't have, especially the guys coming from singles, just because it's a shot that you never play in singles. Like you know, you don't on the juice side, you don't ever hit an inside-out backhand return kind of aimed towards halfway up the singles line. You know, so it's just and in terms of what we do now, both of them are working the returns in the close season. And again, it's just adding, it's keeping doing the things that you do well, keeping doing those things, and it's adding extra bits as well.
How many guys have a topspin lob return?
Harry, I coached two of them. Harry has a great topspin lob return. Luke has it as well. I tell you, who loses it sneaky well. Lloyd uses it sneaky well off
Okay, yeah, I have seen
off
that.
second serves. He kind of does because his backhand return especially is a great return, but then he's kind of started adding this like topspin lob kind of. I don't know if I say topspin. It is topspin, but he's kind of like he's very good at just bunting it over the net guy.
Hmm.
I'd say there's not many other than that. It's something you've
Yeah.
really got to work on, and there's certain circumstances that, like I know Luke has a kind of a sort of checklist of things that he's going to use it in this situation. Like, you know,
Hmm.
he's like, right, this is in place, this is in place, this is in place. Now I'm going to use it, and he'll decide on that basis. Um, but I'm surprised there's not more who use it, to be honest, especially on second serves.
Yeah.
First serves, it's tough. Although Harry has used it on first serves, I've seen him do it. But he's probably used it a little less this year than he did last year. I know last year at Wimbledon, when we played Bileli Vavasori, he drove those two guys crazy with his topspin lob returns because they get very, very, very close to the net, and
Hmm.
they just couldn't get a handle on him either on returns or in the points. But then we've played them twice since then, and he's not used it as much. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, you want to keep people guessing. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of people who use it, and it needs working on. You know, again, it's because it's a shot again that you don't come out of you know, all these guys have played singles. You don't come out of singles having used it.
Hmm. Yeah, seems like the most difficult option for a lob return would be the topspin.
Yeah,
Obviously, the
and
chip is easier.
yeah, but again, it's like if you've got certain things, you know, you've also got to have a good backhand and you've got to have good feel on it and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But and it needs training. You know, I remember when it was probably not 18 months ago, probably 15 months ago. I think after US Open last year, that I said to Luke, right, we're gonna add this in. And I remember he did it the first time after that was he might have used it once when I wasn't there, but I remember like him and Sander played Roger Vasselin and Santi Gonzalez. Um, and he'd used it a couple of times in practice that week. We played with John Peers and Jamie Murray in practice, and he'd won a couple of points with it, but never actually used it in a match. And then I think it was in the tie break against, or maybe in the game that they broke, Roger Vass and Santi Gonzalez, and he threw one up, and it just was like just the other guys just didn't expect it. It just kind of it was the slowest clean winner you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then since then he has a phenomenal success rate with it though. Like when he does it,
Yeah.
like like in Henry, like Henry's kind of like giving him it as his copyright now. Like when he does it, he's kind of like it's classic Luke Johnson. Like and it's funny to say that when he like you know he didn't have this shot like 16 months ago, you know, and now it's like kind of become his trademark. But again, the thing is, Will, with it, and this is why Luke is so dangerous, is that like what you're going to do because if he's doing it to stop people crowding the net, but if you don't crowd the net and you go like for example to his backhand, he's going to absolutely club it.
Hmm.
So you know it's kind of like, and then your other option is you go to his forehand, which is a ridiculous shot.
Hmm.
So you know so it's just adding those things in. And kind of Henry is the same. You know, Henry, because he's lefty, it's not so feasible to do a topspin backhand return, but certainly like the chip lob is something that he started using this year. And I actually didn't realize until I checked the data, his success rate this year on the chip lob is very, very good. It's up there with the best in the world when he uses his chip lob in terms of points won.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine it's a bit more effective on that deuce side. I guess,
It's
depending
not
on the
so much like,
scenario.
I mean, as
But
well, even I've made the mistake there of terming it a chip lob. I don't like to call it a chip because the chip is when you kind of come down the back of the ball and that kind of
yeah,
slows it down. So what we've been trying to do and we're still trying to get, and as well with Luke trying to use it on the forehand, that it's kind of like it's a push lob. It's kind of
just like a
flat.
block. Yeah,
Yeah, I know that like because we practiced a lot in North Carolina before US Open, and we had a couple of guys who came in and like a lad who American like on Matt Kiger, who I think just broke top 100. He came in and he was like hitting with us or practicing with us on those days when I was working a lot with Henry on that shot, and then Mac won a challenger a couple of weeks ago, and he sent Henry a message saying, "Oh, Calvin, I'll be proud at those knuckleball lobs that I was using today." And it's kind of never thought about it in those terms, but it kind of is like a knuckleball lob. You want to hit it
yeah,
flat, and I mean the player who does it the best. I mean Jamie Murray used to be brilliant at it.
yeah.
Like a flat lob, but Mate Pavic is also very good at it. And it's kind of like I said, the tip I've kind of been giving Henry is like you don't want the racket to go down on the contact. The racket has to go like you go up, like and punch
Yeah,
it up and over, and then get into the
yeah,
net. And it's not just the height because it has no spin. It's not topspin height. It's the speed that it can get. You get the ball, even if it's a little bit lower than a standard chip lob, it goes over the opponent quicker, so they don't have time
that's
to
true.
respond to it.
Yeah, because it doesn't have that backspin on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, you mentioned the off season. What does the off season look like for you? And then talk specifically about, I guess, your process for Henry and for Luke, for kind of preparing them. How do you schedule an off season plan for them?
I mean, it's completely different because Luke lives quite near me, and so we'll do a lot of trading up in the north of England, which is where we are, and then we'll go down and do a couple of weeks in London. We'll do it with a couple of the other British guys, and also Luke's going to be playing with Jan Zielinski next year.
Okay.
So Jan's going to come over and do a week's training with us at the NTC in London. So we'll do it's kind of I'm very hands-on with that. I've got some ideas on areas that I want Luke to work on and improve ready for next season already. So that's very much I'm very much involved day to day on that. Henry is a little different because Henry is in the States. He's in North Carolina with his fiancee Ellie, so he will do his preseason there. So what we did last year, and I think what I'll do this year in a different fashion is I'll call him up, like we're gonna have a chat like later in the week or weekend and talk about what areas we both want him to be better at. I mean, it's a difficult one. Henry's playing such good level tennis at the end of the year, so it's not like right, this needs to be better, this needs to be better, but there are always things you want to improve. And then once we've had that discussion, I'll then kind of come up with a few drills and I'll send them over in the best way I can, in the best way of explaining them. And then he'll sort of organize his own training with those drills. And he's got some great guys with him down at University of North Carolina, where he's going to train at Trip Phillips, and his team are very good at sort of helping him out. And there's some good players there. I think they've got a couple more players there. I think Mackie McDonald's actually living there now, so I think he's going to go in and train a bit as well. So he'll play with a few college guys and a few singles guys, and it worked all right last year. I didn't think that the first week of the year when they lost first round in Brisbane, but 2 weeks later when they won Australia, I thought, yeah, that preseason plan actually works all right.
Yeah. So a couple more questions and then I'll let you hop off. Just kind of reflecting on the year for doubles overall. Um, One of the big storylines, I guess, was the US Open mixed. And I know we've talked about it. You've talked about it a lot on your podcast. Kind of looking back on it, do you feel like the um the result was good, bad, or to be announced for doubles?
It should have been great for doubles, but I think there's some bad actors who just won't accept anything with it. And I think, even straight away when Vava and Sarah had won it, there was still people like the people who were commentating on it were going, oh, but next year when these guys have practiced more, then this result will change. And which is ridiculous. And then also this idea, like the one that cracked me up the most, Will, was when people were giving it like, yeah, but they play together all the time. Like what's
Yeah,
all the time?
that was funny.
There's
Yeah,
only four tournaments that have mixed doubles. One of them, I know
yeah,
Henry and Olivia beat them first round in Australia. So what they've played three tournaments together in the last year, and also as if they're forging some kind of mixed doubles training. Like they're
yeah.
not. They just play the
No,
matches. They just
no, no,
know
no.
how to play doubles. They were the only doubles only team in there, and they knew how to do it. And Vava and Sarah just figured out, and they carried out their plan to perfection of how they were going to
Even
do it.
even still, I think they partnered together for the first time in 2024. Like
Yeah,
they had
yeah,
been playing
exactly
together
that.
like a year and a half. And by
Yeah,
playing together, I mean they had played like 6 tournaments over the course of 12 months or something.
yeah. And in mixed doubles, it's
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
just the matches. There's no
yeah,
training going on for mixed doubles,
yeah,
So, but I mean, like, for example, I would say they've played together probably less than Christian Harrison and Daniel Collins, who I know Christian Harrison's dad used to coach Daniel Collins. They've known each other for years, so I reckon they've played together a whole lot.
yeah.
But they didn't win the tournament. So, but yeah, look, it was justification, and it was probably the match I was most happy about this year that didn't involve any of my lads. When I was watching it, I was actually really tight watching the final.
Me too.
But and I was really happy for them that they ended up winning. I hope it's not something that we see more of. And the more I've watched it, because I know you've followed it, I've got a thread on Twitter basically called "Nobody Wants to Watch Doubles," which is, I don't know which player has said it. It's either Andy Roddick or Riley Opelka or one of the American singles guys has said it. Like no one wants to watch doubles, and it's just a thread of stadiums this year full of people watching doubles.
Hmm.
And I haven't even added some towards the end of the year yet from Paris and Vienna and Turin, where all these tournaments, like, look, Turin, I'm going to say, was probably the least full it was for the doubles, was probably 70%. And then
Hmm.
coming towards the end, like 100%. Paris, everyone was wanting to watch. China, everyone was wanting to watch doubles. It's tennis. People want to watch tennis. So, again, it's this myth that bad actors say no one wants to watch doubles. And basically, they're trying to convince people of a thing that's not actually the case. I mean, we played, again, I get that there are home players in there. I know that, like, when we played Nice and Roger Vasselin in Paris, that was packed. And that stadium is that was on the second court, but that's a big court. And that people couldn't get into that court to watch that match. Now, what what's this about? No one wants to watch doubles.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't even like the fact that you have to put the caveat in there of like, I get that it was the home players because
Exactly.
we
Exactly. It's the same, but it's
we
sport, isn't it? Because I've
but
had this
that's it's
before where
true in
people,
singles though.
yeah,
If you
100%.
go to Indian Wells, like I'll be on a doubles court with two Americans and on court like 6, and then court 5 will have a singles match with two like European players that are a little bit lower ranked. There will be nobody on 5 and everyone's on
100%. 100,
6.
and I say
And
this all the
same for
time when,
Cincinnati. So the
yeah,
home crowd thing, like it's almost like we're having to prove ourselves over and
well,
over. Like, wait,
I've
so it
seen,
has to be no people from the country that it's being taken place in. The stadium has to be totally full. It has to
yeah,
be no singles players. Like
no
we have
singles
to
guys, yeah,
fit
because
all these
that's another one.
criteria.
That's
Yeah.
another one. Is it? They go, oh
It's
yeah, but he's
just
he's playing like Berrettini's playing there though. That's why
yeah.
people are like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember in Madrid, I
Yeah,
put
it's
like
funny.
in Madrid, I put like yeah, the court that we played in Madrid was full, and I put it up there. I think, and somebody went, yeah, but Corda's playing. And like, yeah, all due respect to Corda,
No,
is he
no.
a crowd puller in Madrid?
Yeah.
Like, it's
He
like,
could probably walk around the streets of Madrid
yeah.
and nobody's gonna
Um,
say it.
but it's like you say, but again, and I find it that, and this is the case that when people don't watch doubles, it's when they don't watch anything.
Hmm.
There are some tournaments that are just not people don't watch. There's just not. You do wonder how are these tournaments staying alive, and
Hmm.
even some of those like Miami is one. There'll be there'll be singles matches in Miami that there's just no one on the court for, just no one
Hmm.
watching because
Yes.
it mainly because it's in the middle of nowhere and it's not in a tennis community.
Yeah. Um, So I want to move on to the last question, partnership update. So you mentioned Luke is going to play with Jan Zielinski. Can you tell us, are Henry and Harry sticking together? And then do you have
Oh
any
yeah,
other
Henry. Yeah,
partnership
yeah. No,
info?
no. Henry
Okay.
and Harry. There was never any real discussion that
Okay.
they would split. I mean, they're so close. They get on so well, and they've been so successful. There's absolutely no reason for them to split, and they're just great for each other as well. So,
Awesome.
there's no I think that they'll probably continue for the foreseeable, very much the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Um, um, I think, yeah, there are some, there's some other pairs, like say Luke and Sander Arens split. Luke is going to play with Jan Zielinski. Sander, I think, is going to play with Romain Arniodo.
Hmm.
Um, Neil Skupski, obviously, is going to play with Christian Harrison. I don't know if there's many other big changes at the top. I know there's a few.
I know Evan
uh,
King is going to play with John Pierce, I
Evan King's going to play
believe.
with John Piers. That's what I heard, yeah. Um, there'll be some like guys in the sort of 20 to 40 range, I think, who are changing. I did know another one. What is it? I think JP Smith is going to play with Pavlicek, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. Or it might be
I
Ron
remember
Bowley with
seeing JP
Pavlicek.
Smith's name. I don't remember who it was. Yeah.
It might be Ron Bowley. No,
Okay.
Ron Bowley, sorry, is going to play with Mello. And
Okay.
Matos is going to play with Luz. So a
Okay.
little sort of Brazilian
Brazil.
change up there. And
Yeah.
yeah, JP Smith going to play with Pavlicek.
Okay.
I know there are a couple more players. Like I'd heard that the Germans, Kravitz and Puetz, are probably not going to play as many tournaments this year. They're going to sort of roll it down. I think they're not going to play all the Masters.
Hmm.
And Granola Zebios almost never play that many tournaments. They may play more. I guess Granolas was injured for a lot of this season. Maybe that
Hmm.
changes. So yeah, I mean, I think that they're the sort of main ones in the top 30 range, though.
Okay. So it seems like most of the teams are sticking together, or we just don't know yet.
I think they are sticking together, Will, just because I think we would
Yeah.
have heard if they're not. I know there was some sort of questions about Aravallo Pavic. I mean, Pavic has his rule that he's gonna break. He has his rule about 2 years with any partner,
Yeah.
which he's stuck with and been very successful with. But he's done his 2 years with Cello Aravallo now, and they seem to be sticking together.
Okay.
So yeah, Lloyd and Jules obviously will stick together. Henry and Harry stick together. Granola Zeballos will just stick together until they both retire, I would think.
Yeah.
Kravitz Puetz are sticking, but I think Puetz is gonna. I think Puetz doesn't want to play so much, but I think Kevin might play a few extra tournaments
Yeah.
as well. Harrison King have obviously split. We talked about that. Bilal Vavasori sticking together. So yeah,
All right. Well, we'll see what 2026 has to offer. Calvin, thanks a ton for coming on again. Really
pleasure.
impressive year for you and both your players, and best of luck next year.
Thanks, Will. Cheers, mate.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Doubles Only Tennis Podcast. If you're interested in diving deeper into the world of doubles strategy, I've created Tennis Tribe memberships that allow me to bring you more podcast episodes, video lessons, webinars, and other doubles content on a weekly basis without relying on paid ads. The lessons inside the membership will help you better game plan with your partner, optimize your practices, and become the smartest player on the court. Go to thetennistribe.com/memberships to learn more and sign up. You can also join my free newsletter on our homepage, where I share a new doubles lesson every week. If you want to connect, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or contact me through our website. Thanks again for listening.